Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. India lodges strong protest over Canada's absurd and baseless allegation against Home Minister Amit Shah. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump campaign in battleground states with 3 days left for the election day. New poll statistics show a close race in blue wall states. In Bangladesh, Sanatan Jagran Manch demands withdrawal of false cases against Hindu leaders, threatens to launch a series of protests if demands not met by Monday. UN COP16 summit on biodiversity in Colombia agrees to create fund to share profits of digitally sequenced genetic data taken from animals and plants with communities they come from. And India fights back to be in the driver's seat after the end of day 2 in the ongoing third and final test match against New Zealand in Mumbai. With just 3 days left for the US presidential election, the power of the female vote is in the focus. Women represent the country's largest voting demographic and are known for their high turnout in US elections. According to reports, women have outpaced men in the early voting in the 7 most contested battleground states. In recent weeks, the widening gender gap has caused alarm for Republicans. A report. The world is seeing an ever-increasing vitriolic US election campaign in 2024. The campaign makes headlines daily for the bitter attacks the two opponents are trading, but in the last leg, each of their support base is also on the radar. Former President Donald Trump called former top Republican Liz Cheney, now supporting Kamala Harris, a warmonger during a campaign event in the battleground state of Arizona.
She's a warmonger. She wants to go kill people unnecessarily. And if she had to do it herself and she had to face the consequences of battle, she wouldn't be doing it. So it's easy for her to talk, but she wouldn't be doing it. She's actually a disgrace.
Liz Cheney is one of the most prominent Republicans to turn against Trump during his third consecutive bid for the presidency. Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday slammed remarks by her Republican rival and called Trump increasingly unstable.
He has increased his violent rhetoric, Donald Trump has, about political opponents, and in great detail, suggested rifles should be trained on former Representative Liz Cheney. This must be disqualifying.
It's not just Cheney who has switched sides. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who started his presidential campaign as a Democrat, is now endorsing Republican Donald Trump.
I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. The Democratic Party that I grew up with was the party of peace. It was the party of civil rights and constitutional rights, and particularly freedom of speech. Today's Democratic Party is the party of war. It's the party of Dick Cheney. It's the party...
Los queremos, y arriba Arizona!
The issue of women's rights has been dominating this election campaign right from the beginning. On Wednesday, during a rally in Wisconsin, Donald Trump said that he will protect women whether they like it or not, drawing criticism from Vice President Kamala Harris and her campaign. Also in Wisconsin, American rapper and singer Cardi B on Friday gave an emphatic endorsement of Kamala Harris.
Trump says he's going to protect women whether they like it or not. Well, if his definition of protection is not the freedom of choice, if his definition of protection is making sure our daughters have fewer rights than our mothers, then I don't want it! I I'm not giving Donald Trump a second chance. Nope. I'm not taking any chances with my future. And
as women outpace men in early voter turnout, Trump's challenge is now to win over female voters, whereas Harris has not emphasized her gender during her campaign. But if elected, she would be the first female president in United States history. A historically close contest awaits all of us on Tuesday. Bureau Report, DD India. And now my colleague Shubhendu Ghosh joins me live from Atlanta, Georgia. Hi Shubhendu. Opinion polls in the US show that the race to the White House is poised on a knife's edge. But how reliable have US opinion polls proved to be in the past?
Hello, Tanvi from Atlanta, Georgia. Well, opinion polls are what they are. They are opinions, end of the day. And also, interestingly, opinion polls haven't really clearly taken a side this time over. They are talking about a very tight contest. So in that sense, not much insight into who could really be the contender for the White House, Tanvi. But there are also certain problematic aspects associated with the opinion polls. This time, as we see the contest being so close, a lot depends on voters who are yet undecided or who haven't disclosed who is their candidate of choice. So in that sense, opinion polls are not able to capture the sentiment of those who are in fact going to finally decide who will enter the White House. There are also other problematic issues with it. Media bias, which is not talked about much. Every candidate has a certain media house which sort of has a certain incline towards them. So in that sense, when they come out with an opinion poll, they do give a few points edge to their favorite candidate. There is also a sort of unspoken about betting ecosystem which exists here. A lot of money changes hand around betting who will win the presidential race. So that also puts additional pressure, influence into the opinion polls. So as one gets closer to the election day, one has to take the opinion polls with a pinch of salt. But anyway, the opinion polls haven't given much insight into who is going to come out on top. Tanvi?
Okay, and what would you describe as the key issues in this US election?
Tanvi, we see the issues that have dominated the narrative in these elections. Perhaps the first would be, as it has also climbed up the ladder, would be the issue of illegal immigration. Past couple of years, the United States of America has seen some 11 million undocumented, they're referred to as illegal immigrants as well, reaching the US. In New York, where I was in the first leg of our coverage, about 200,000 illegal immigrants have entered New York. Now, here the city administration also has to provide for these immigrants. So it's not that as if they have to fend for themselves. So there is some degree of housing, shelter, food, medicine, and other facilities that have to be provided to these immigrants. And that puts a lot of pressure on the limited resources. Many immigrants who have entered US legally feel strongly about it. They say that they've waited for a long time to be able to access resources, to be able to make a future in a country like America. On the other side, there are these illegal immigrants who come in without any documents and lay a claim over the resources that rightfully belong to somebody else. So in that sense, it's a very, very sensitive issue in these elections. There is also of course, the issue of abortion and the kind of stand that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have taken on the same. That is also going to determine how the women voters in America are going to vote. There's a bit of a complexity there. There is a separate amendment in the context of the reversal of the Joe versus Roe judgment. There is a separate amendment in at least 10 states in the early voting where the voters could vote what their stand on the issue of abortion is. Then there is, of course, economy. Although the overall economic signs look balanced for America, the pinch of inflation has been felt by all sections of society, especially the middle class. Groceries, everyday items have become more expensive in the past couple of years. And that is a matter of concern for the Americans as well. And besides that, there are a number of other issues. The position that America occupies in the world today, the kind of role, the tacit role it plays in the conflicts that are underway, say in Ukraine or in Gaza, the investment in terms of money and resources that goes into it. all of that is on the mind of the voter as they come out to vote. And many of them, mind you, have already exercised their franchise in the early voting.
So we know the blue states lean Democratic and the red states which lean Republican. So is this blue state, red state dynamic likely to be changed in these elections?
Not much, Tanvi. Usually, a lot of research insight goes into it, the manner in which the red state and blue state, they're given those tags only after they exhibit a certain kind of behavior, political behavior, over multiple elections. It's not just if a state voted blue in the last election or Democrat in the last election, it will be called blue. So successive elections, when the people of the state show an inclination towards a particular party, so they get that tag of a red or a blue state. So not much is expected there. Therefore, the action really is centered around the 7 swing states, which in the past elections, for example, I'm in Georgia. In 2016, when Donald Trump won the presidency, Georgia was with Donald Trump. In 2020, when Joe Biden took the White House, Georgia swung towards the Democrats. So in that sense, these are the states which don't exhibit a very consistent behavior as to what is their preference, and they sort of change their stance based on the candidate, based on the issues in focus. So in that sense, these 7 states, including Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and others, really hold the key, because the other states, the red and blue states, are broadly balanced. The electoral votes are broadly balanced between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. What happens in these 7 states? And mind you, a difference of 100 votes could in fact change the destiny of the outcome of these swing states. It's an electoral vote that counts, which means that even if a candidate wins by just 1 vote in the state of Georgia overall, they will get all the 16 electoral votes. So in that sense, hugely crucial focus on these swing states in these elections.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you very much. Shubhendu Ghosh reporting from Atlanta, Georgia, US. So as the dust settles on a pivotal week in the US election campaign, candidates are making their final push ahead of the election day, November 5th. Both candidates are accusing each other of negative campaigning while launching no-holds-barred attacks on the other. How does the American voter see all this? Amritpal Singh travels to upstate Pennsylvania to take stock. Take a look.
The race so tight, the stakes so high, that vilifying the opponent has become the norm this election season. Violent threats of revenge, racism, misogyny, negative campaigning, it's all there by the bucket load. The dance of democracy is as alluring as it is disturbing. So what impact do these negative campaigns have on US elections? How are the Americans responding to it?
Both sides are kind of like either scared or they hate each other.
The individuals that's running right now should bring more of unity instead of division. With the false narratives that's being pursued on both parties, Republican and Democratic, they're not bringing the unity that we probably need to begin the conversation of change. Who are we as the people to have that same unity or to show that unity?
Political watchers say it's so because the stakes this time are very high for both sides, especially in the swing states.
Both campaigns themselves are, making a very strong presence here in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is absolutely required for either that wants to win this. Democrats are very concerned that their base might not come out. Republicans are also making their campaigns on. Hardcore Republicans are charged up.
It's very interesting. I was very surprised when I saw it. It says Republicans for Harris Walls, clearly pointing out that they are trying to win over voters from the other side to win this election. It's that close, it's that tight, and swing states like Pennsylvania could indeed decide who sits in the Oval Office for the next 4 years. With cameraman Sanjay Jaina, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Collegeville, Pennsylvania.
You're watching DD India News Hour, still to come on the show. Volunteers clean up storm-damaged areas in Spain's Alfafar. UN COP16 Nature Summit in Cali, Colombia creates permanent body for indigenous peoples to consult on United Nations decisions on nature conservation. And Kemi Badenoch becomes new leader of UK Conservatives, first black woman in the role.
Who will be the next president of United States of America?
Will Donald Trump make a dramatic comeback, or will Kamala Harris become America's first woman president?
It's a tight race to the White House.
The knives are out and the battle lines sharply drawn.
He's becoming increasingly unstable and unhinged.
She's a threat to democracy because she shouldn't even be the candidate.
I'm Amritpal Singh.
I'm Shubhendu Ghosh.
We travel across the United States
To decode the issues at the heart of this polarized election.
Watch this space only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. On to Asia now. Tens of thousands of Hindus rallied in Bangladesh, urging the interim government to protect minorities against attacks and drop sedition charges against Hindu leaders. United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk visited Dhaka this week and said that Bangladesh court needs reforms before the trial of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. More in this report.
Sedition cases filed against Hindu leaders in Bangladesh have raised concerns over safety of minority in the country. On Friday, torch procession was held in Dhaka to demand better treatment of minorities in the country. While in Chattogram, Sanatan Jagran Manch held a massive rally and demanded withdrawal of false cases. These cases were filed against 19 people, including Chinmoy Krishnadas Brahmachari of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The platform issued a 2-day ultimatum and threatened to launch a series of protests if the case is not withdrawn by coming Monday. In view of current political development in Bangladesh, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights recently visited Bangladesh. High Commissioner Turk urged that the protests, which highlighted demands for human rights, accountability and social justice, must be met with meaningful reforms.
I found the interim government to be aware of the problems with the proceedings in the International Criminal Tribunal in the past. My office has provided comments on amending the ICT law to bring it into line with international standards and to ensure the right to fair trial and that justice is served without compromising due process.
Hindu groups reported an increase in attacks since early August, following the ousting of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Earlier, former President of the United States, Donald Trump, condemned the barbaric attack on minorities in Bangladesh. In July, Bangladesh witnessed student-led protests against public sector job quotas. The unrest was some of the deadliest since the country's independence in 1971, resulting in over 1,000 deaths and numerous injuries, many of them among protesting university and college students. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.
And we have with us Veena Sikri, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Welcome, ma'am. So why do so many attacks against minorities continue in Bangladesh 3 months after former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was ousted?
I think this is a very serious matter. It's a matter of great concern. And I'm really heartened to see that this concern, of course, has been expressed by our leaders, by Prime Minister Modi, directly to Professor Mohammed Yunus and in his conversation with President Biden as well. But today I'm seeing that there's a global concern for these problems that the Hindu minorities, the Christian minorities, the Buddhist minorities are suffering in Bangladesh, particularly since the departure of Sheikh Hasina on August 5th. There is a council in Bangladesh, the Council for Hindu, Buddhist, Christian Unity, and they have been documenting all these attacks, and they have said that even in the first month since Sheikh Hasina left on August 5th, there were close to 2,000 such attacks on the minorities, and these included very serious physical attacks, rape, abductions, lootings, killings, burnings. And when there was international focus on this, the direct attacks stopped, but the attacks on economic livelihoods began. So Hindu teachers were forced to give up their jobs, Hindu professors were forced to give up their jobs just by sheer pressure surrounding them, the Islamists surrounding them and asking them to give up their jobs. And now, under the government led by the Jamaat-e-Islami, although Professor Muhammad Yunus is the chief advisor, it is well known that it is the Jamaat-e-Islami and the Hizb ut-Tahrir that are controlling all decisions in this government. This government has now, even asked for the police officers who are Hindu religion to be suspended. So this is really a direct attack on the livelihoods of all the minority community. But today we have seen that this rally, this is because sedition cases have been filed. As recently as Wednesday, sedition cases have been filed against 19 Hindu leaders, including very senior leaders like Chandrakumar Thar and others, and the leaders of the ISKCON. Cases have been filed against them, and the global ISKCON community is extremely upset at this development in Bangladesh. The ISKCON community, as you know, has a huge global following, and they have expressed their deep concern about the attacks on their leaders in Bangladesh and about the treatment of the Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh. In addition, we have seen that former President Trump, who is now standing for election as president in just another 3-4 days, he has issued a very strong statement 2 days ago, calling the attacks on the minorities, the Hindus and the Christians, as barbaric. Now we've seen that he said he's very concerned at the chaos in Bangladesh, he's concerned at these attacks on the minorities. And I think that all this adds up to a very strong indictment of the interim government in Bangladesh, that they are not paying enough attention to the very serious concerns of the minority communities. Because even in response to the concerns raised by President Trump, the interim government has just dismissed it out of hand, saying, oh, no, he doesn't know, we must know the facts. And that, there were very few attacks and it's nothing communal. And that this is their version of the truth. They are choosing to ignore the report made by the Council of Unity for Hindus, Buddhists and Christians, which is a very well-established council, which has been there in Bangladesh for decades and has been playing a very big role in the integration of the minority communities in the life of Bangladesh. To dismiss the report of this council, which has claimed about 2,000 and many more than 2,000 attacks, and to say that there were only a few and they can be completely disregarded, has created a real divide in the community over there. It is a matter of great concern. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, who is right now in Dhaka,
yes.
Look, he himself has said, although he was called only to investigate the killings between 15 July and 5th of August, but now he himself has called for a universal investigation, looking into all the events of violence against minorities, against others, covering the period well after 5th of August as well. So it is very important that even the UN Commissioner for Human Rights has made a similar comment, saying that it has to be inclusive. Justice has to be inclusive.
So, ma'am, from here onwards, how do you see Muhammad Yunus's role in this whole chaotic situation, pulling Bangladesh out of this social chaos?
Well, right now, it is a matter of real concern because this government, the interim government, is not really constitutional. It's not really provided for in the constitution of Bangladesh. Even the earlier constitution, before the caretaker government clause was removed, even that constitution just had a clause saying that a caretaker government can be there only for 90 days just to conduct free and fair elections. But this government is, not only instituting all kinds of reforms. They have a constitutional reform commission, an election reform commission, and all kinds of economic reforms and so on. But it is not talking about elections at all. In fact, it is the concern of most people, even in Bangladesh. And now the slogan that earlier it was better, Aage bhalo chilo, it was much better earlier. This slogan is carrying a lot of weight in Bangladesh because this government, interim government, seems to be doing exactly what they were accusing the former Prime Minister of doing. They were accusing her of being autocratic, they were accusing her of not following the constitution. This government is doing the same thing. It is a complete mobocracy. It is a complete, absolutely chaos and anarchy going on there. And that is why you see the minority communities so concerned about their future that they're coming out in large numbers, but it is important that they're coming out, they're making a stand that yes, we are citizens of Bangladesh, we will stay here. We want our rights to be protected. We want the charges to be investigated. They have made a list of 8 demands. They want a tribunal to check all their demands. They want that there should be a ministry for minorities. They want that there should be an investigation into all the police atrocities. So I think the community of minorities today in Bangladesh is getting together to make sure that they're able to protect their rights. But one is really concerned because there is no indication of how these rights will be protected within the system because there's talk of changing the constitution. But this very government was sworn in under the present constitution of Bangladesh. So when you're sworn in against the present constitution of Bangladesh, it is your duty to abide by that constitution. And once the elections have been held, then of course the new government can, if they have 2/3 majority, they want to change the constitution, it's up to them. So at the moment, the situation is indeed extremely confusing and worrying, and one is watching very carefully what is going to happen.
Reform being the need of the hour. Thank you very much, Veena Sikriji, for joining us on DD India News.
Right.
Moving on, Spain is mounting its largest peacetime disaster recovery operation as the death toll from recent floods surpassed 210 mark, with dozens still unaccounted for. 4 days after torrential rain swept through the eastern region of Valencia, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announced that the government is sending an additional 5,000 army troops to assist with the search and rescue efforts. Spain continues to grapple with the aftermath of the deadliest ever floods in decades. On Saturday, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announced a special aid package and an extra 10,000 troops and police for the flooded areas.
I would also like to inform you that I have ordered, as I have also communicated to President Macron, the deployment today of 5,000 additional national police and civil guards, doubling the number of those already deployed to bring the total number of both civil guard and national police deployed in the areas affected by these floods to 10,000.
The announcement came after residents and volunteers from the flood-hit regions demanded more help from the military and regional and national governments to clear the damage. Anger was clearly evident on the faces of those affected by the floods.
But where is the army to help us? Because I have a bodega that needs to be drained of all the water and there is no way out. I have told many people and they have not paid any attention. Where is the help that we have to have? Where is the army? Where are all these people? The houses are collapsing and they don't pay attention to us.
With death toll mounting with each passing day, situation on the ground still remains grim. More than 90% of the households in eastern Spain were hit by the catastrophic floods. The populous Valencia region was the hardest hit by the floods. Emergency workers and volunteers are on site in the affected areas, working to clear piled up cars and fearing the discovery of more trapped bodies.
The difficulties, especially the number of cars and how squashed they are. Then, at the end of the day, the water is very dirty, so it is very difficult for us to vacuum.
Amid the ongoing cleanup efforts, hundreds of volunteers gathered at Valencia's City of Arts and Sciences on Saturday, forming long lines to assist in cleanup efforts. Families and individuals equipped with buckets and shovels joined together in solidarity to aid the massive recovery effort. Bureau Report, DD India. Kemi Badenoch became the Conservatives' new leader and the first black woman to head a major British political party on Saturday after winning a leadership contest on a promise to return the party to its founding principles. Badenoch, 44, replaces former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and has pledged to lead the party through this period of renewal. Badenoch becomes the Conservatives' fifth leader since mid-2016 after winning 57% of party members' votes in the final stage of a months-long contest that saw a field of 6 whittled down to 2. She beat a former immigration minister, Robert Jenrick, who won 43% of the votes.
The time has come to tell the truth, to stand up for our principles, to plan for our future, to reset our politics and our thinking, and to give our party and our country the new start that they deserve. It is time to get down to business. It is time to renew.
Countries at the UN COP16 nature talks in Colombia on Saturday agreed on how companies in sectors including pharmaceuticals and cosmetics should pay for the use of genetic information drawn from biodiversity in their research and development.
The plenary can adopt document L32 revision 1 on digital sequence information on genetic resources as a whole document. As I don't see a party asking for the floor, so it is adopted.
Countries at the summit also agreed to create a permanent body for indigenous peoples under United Nations Biodiversity Conservation. The decision was the big breakthrough to be achieved at the COP16 summit and recognizing the role that indigenous peoples play in conserving nature globally. Delegates also agreed on a specific role for Afro-descendant communities in the new subsidiary body. The COP16 summit hosted in Cali, Colombia, was a follow-up to the historic 2022 Montreal Accord, which includes 23 measures to save plants and animal life. Still to come on DD India News Hour. A discussion with our expert on the ever-vitriolic US polls campaign. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar lauds Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership in enhancing India's friendships across the world. And Serbians light candles for 14 who died in the train station roof collapse on Friday.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. A quick reminder of the headlines we are tracking at this hour. Okay, so as the final weekend winds down before the US election campaign, candidates are making their final pushes ahead of the election day, November 5th. And to discuss this, we have with us former senior Indian diplomat Prabhu Dayal on the show. Welcome, sir, to the program. What would you say are Kamala Harris's strengths and weaknesses, and also Trump's strengths and weaknesses as presidential candidates of the United States?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. Their strengths and weaknesses are as perceived by different sections. You know, if you look at the American media, you will find that there is a deep division in which section of the media considers the chances of which candidate as being stronger. Nonetheless, you know, as far as voters are concerned, they are definitely going to be swayed by the respective positions of the two candidates on some important issues. Now, one important issue is inflation. Most Americans are very concerned about the rising cost of living, and they are analyzing how each candidate would affect this particular issue. The success of the Biden administration has not been much, but Harris has promised to bring down costs and increase economic security for all Americans. Of course, Trump has assured that he would do everything possible to help the average American have a good chance of surviving this extremely rapidly rising inflation. Now, another very important issue is the housing crisis. It's a critical issue, and buyers are facing pretty high mortgage rates. High interest rates have left stagnant markets, and there is also a lower supply and costlier rent phenomena. You know, when the prices of construction go up, the supplies of homes come down. And likewise, the availability of homes for rent is also lesser. So people are concerned about it. And both candidates are focusing on this very important issue. I think immigration is a very divisive issue also. And Republicans are highlighting what they see is a list of failures from the Biden-Harris administration in regard to illegal immigration. Trump has repeatedly harped on this. But of course, there are some related aspects like racial and ethnic issues, which are all being seen as connected to illegal immigration. So both candidates have been focusing attention. I'm not sure whose case is more convincing, but there is no doubt that many Americans are concerned about how illegal immigration has gone up during the Biden administration. Again, let me mention that abortion is an important issue. Harris supports abortion rights and is making this issue of reproductive health care central to her campaign. Trump, on his part, has said that he won't sign a federal abortion ban, although he was seen as being an opponent of abortion. But he has now said that he would like to leave this matter to the states. So these are some of the major topics which are under discussion amongst the voter base. And it remains to be seen how, by the time the election day comes, the voter base is more convinced about the suitability of which candidate. It's a very tight race.
Yeah, it's a tight race.
I understand
But
it's like
why?
48% in favor of Trump and 47% in favor of Harris. This is according to some surveys, but some surveys put it as like 49% in favor of Harris and 47% in favor of Trump. So it's a very tight race, too close to call. But let me also mention that the popular vote doesn't really determine the outcome of the election. For example, in the last elections, rather in the 2020 election, Hillary Clinton, now I go back to the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton got a bigger share of the popular votes. But Donald Trump still became president because in the US system, the voter elects the electoral college members. And the electoral college is composed in a manner which most of our Indian viewers don't understand. Let me mention, the electoral college has got 538 members. And how are these members divided among the states? Each state gets the number of electoral votes as is its share in the US Congress. That is to say, the combined strength of its share in the US House of Representatives, plus you add 2, which is the share that each state has in the Senate. So large states, like for instance California, have 52 representatives in the House of Representatives. So they get a total of 54 because 2 are added on account of their representation in the Senate. Against, for instance, Texas, I think, has got 32. And then that adds up to a total of 34 for them. So likewise, for instance, Pennsylvania has 19 electoral college members. Georgia has 16. So that is how it's divided. Now, if a candidate wins a particular state, that is to say, if he gets the majority of votes in a particular state, then he gets all the electoral college votes in that particular.
Yes. Okay, coming to the election campaign of both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has not made either her race or gender a major talking point in this election. Instead, she is focused on policy. Why do you think she has chosen such a stance?
Because I think she wants her campaign to be more broad-based and to have a greater outreach. Now, if she had made it more gender-based, then there was a danger that she would have alienated the other gender. For instance, there were some indications earlier that she was going to try and appeal to more women, because certainly, since she is a female candidate, she would have an appeal to women voters. But then she would have feared alienating the male voters. So very strategically, she stayed away from making her campaign gender-based. Rather, she tried to make it more broad-based. And as I said, she focused on some of the major issues which are confronting American voters, such as inflation, or the housing prices, immigration, abortion issues. So these are some things that she focused on, but of course Donald Trump also gave a lot of attention.
Okay. And whosoever wins in the end, do you think claims of fraud will also likely to come up after the results are announced?
Well, there is also this danger that, the election results will not be accepted by one particular candidate, that is Donald Trump, because his supporters are already trying to announce that their candidate has won, and if the election announcements really don't go according to their liking, there is a likelihood, according to the American media, that there could be some incidents of violence. In fact, there is every possibility that the Trump camp will say that they have won the election even before the election results are announced. But then that is part of this particularly polarized election that we are witnessing in 2024.
We'll like to leave it here. Thank you very much, Prabhu Dayalji, for joining us on DD India News.
Thank you.
On to West Asia now. Fighting continues to escalate between Israeli forces and the Lebanese Hezbollah group. In a recent attack, rockets and drones were fired from Lebanon towards central, northern and southern Israel. While the US has asked Lebanon to declare unilateral truce with Israel, Iran's leader Khamenei threatened both Israel and the US with a crushing response to Israel's airstrikes.
West Asia. Rockets and drones fired from Lebanon in various parts of Israel. Air raid sirens continued sounding in northern Israel. Around 11 people were wounded in central Israel. The Lebanese Hezbollah group says it had targeted Israel's Palmachim air base in southern Tel Aviv with drones. The Islamic resistance in Iraq said later in a statement that it had launched drones at vital targets in northern Israel. It was not immediately clear if the group's action was related to the injuries. Fighting escalated between Israeli forces and Lebanese Hezbollah group since September, and hopes that US push this week for a ceasefire have faded. Meanwhile, United States asked Lebanon to declare unilateral truce with Israel. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei said on Saturday that United States and Israel will receiving a crushing response for what they do against his country. He made the comments to students ahead of the anniversary of the 1979 seizure of US Embassy in Tehran by students shortly after the Islamic Revolution that ousted US-backed Shah.
The enemies, whether the Zionist regime or the United States of America, will definitely receive a crushing response to what they are doing to Iran, the Iranian people, and the resistance front.
Amid the conflicting situation, the delayed polio vaccination campaign in Gaza resumed on Saturday. The final phase of the campaign had aimed to reach an estimated 119,000 children under 10 years old in northern Gaza. Bureau Report, DD India.
Serbians held a memorial outside the train station in the northern city of Novi Sad after 14 people were killed when parts of railway roof collapsed. Serbian government wound up a rescue operation and opened an investigation on Saturday into a roof collapse at a railway station. Interior Minister Ivica Dacic said authorities have interviewed 20 people in connection with the disaster. Authorities had declared Saturday a national day of mourning. India has rejected Canada's allegations against its Home Minister. In a media briefing on Saturday, Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal informed that New Delhi summoned the representative of the Canadian High Commission yesterday and protested in the strongest terms the absurd and baseless references by Deputy Minister David Morrison.
We had summoned the representative of the Canadian High Commission yesterday. A diplomatic note was handed over in reference to the proceedings of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security in Ottawa on October 29, 2024. It was conveyed in the note that the Government of India protests in the strongest terms to the absurd and baseless references made to the Union Home Minister of India before the committee by Deputy Minister David Morrison. In fact, the revelation that high Canadian officials deliberately leak unfounded insinuations to the international media as part of a conscious strategy to discredit India and influence other nations only confirms the view Government of India has long held about current Canadian government's political agenda and behavioral pattern. Such irresponsible actions will have serious consequences for bilateral ties.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Saturday attended an event for the launch of a book titled Friends, India's Closest Strategic Partners, authored by Professor Sriram Chaulia. The External Affairs Minister said that the growth of relationships among international partners has majorly been due to the special interest Prime Minister Modi has taken in enhancing India's friendships across the world. Jaishankar also said that the US, Japan and Australia have benefited from the Quad.
The truth is that relationships develop when interests intersect or at least converge. Undoubtedly, sentiment and values do play a part, but not when divorced from interests. Personal association with these transformations do enable me to offer my own insights. 3 of them, US, Japan and Australia, have benefited from the Quad. They are actually examples of overcoming the hesitations of history. 2, UAE and Israel are from a region that is being engaged comprehensively at last. And the final 2, Russia and France, are actually statements of multipolarity, ours as much as theirs.
The author of the book, Professor Sriram Chaulia, who is an expert on India's foreign affairs, stressed on the significance of friendly countries and the role they can play in the development of the country through this book.
Friends matter for a country that is rising, and India is rising very fast in the Narendra Modi era. Last 10 years, we have made tremendous strides in international affairs. So this book is about how we are leveraging the friendships to continue to rise, and it talks about 7 countries that are most vital partners of India. Through these 7 countries, what I'm trying to show is that India is not only extracting benefits from them, but also giving back to them. India is an enabler. We are not only exploiting or benefiting from friends, but we are also enabling them or empowering them to attain their strategic goals. So this book is about a two-way transfer of economic and security and geopolitical benefits, which help to enhance and create a multipolar order where India is one power center, but there are also like 6 to 7 or 8 or 9 more power centers.
India's Ministry of Culture has commenced a special festival series titled Amrit Parampara, a grand celebration to unite India through art and culture. Union Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar graced the event with his presence, joining esteemed artists and dignitaries in celebrating the cultural richness of India. The first program under the Amrit Parampara series is Kaveri Meets Ganga. Diwali celebrations continued in Sri Lanka as the Indian Cultural Association and High Commission of India organised a cultural program to celebrate the Festival of Lights. The event was graced by High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, members of the Indian diaspora and Friends of India. Cultural performances from Sri Lanka and various Indian states as well as a fashion show featured in the event. The Newar community in Nepal celebrated the Maha Puja ritual on Saturday, in which people worship their own self or soul. Maha Puja is based on the religious belief that the soul or self is the most important in the world, and it is believed that if the soul is satisfied, then gods are also satisfied. The day is celebrated especially as the new year of Nepal Sambat, their calendar year. And as Latin America celebrates the Day of the Dead, vibrant traditions emerge honouring the lives of those who left for the heavenly abode. The festival, marked from October 31st to November 2nd, brings families together for heartfelt reunions with their departed loved ones. DD India's Mihir Mekure has more.
Deceased loved ones continue to live in the hearts of those who remember them. But one very special day honors the lives they led on this planet. Marking the Day of the Dead, Santiago's Zacatepeques in Guatemala is filled with giant kites. These stunning creations take months to complete. During this time, the boundaries between the living and the dead blur, as families tie handwritten messages to the kites. These notes express love and longing, helping spirits navigate their journey back to Earth.
It's been really fun watching the process of trying to lift them. I've watched from the back and the front. It's incredible. There's no electronics, there's no machines, it's all human ingenuity.
The tradition of flying kites dates back over a century, bringing families together to await the return of their loved ones' spirits and welcome them.
And also just the pride in the culture of the people. Seems like this tradition has been going for a long time.
125 years.
In Bolivia, the Day of the Dead is marked by heartfelt tributes. From midday on All Saints' Day, November 1st, to midday on All Souls' Day, November 2nd, families prepare their loved ones' favorite foods and drinks, welcoming them back for a day.
Generally, our families prepare what our loved ones liked, whether it is a food or a drink. So with all the respect they have, the families prepare it to receive the souls.
Bolivian families also create antawawa or bread babies, shaped like humans or horses, to ease the spirit's return. Additionally, altars are built to honor animals lost in wildfires, ensuring no life is forgotten. In Mexico, families gather in cemeteries, lighting candles that illuminate marigolds and traditional offerings. It is believed that this atmosphere of remembrance and love invites the spirits of the departed souls to join the living beings once more. As part of the celebrations, Miss Universe contestants donned Katrina makeup, embodying a beloved symbol of the Day of the Dead. This cultural tribute showcases the rich heritage tied to this special occasion. All in all, the Day of the Dead is a celebration of life and love, where families honor their ancestors with colorful traditions, heartfelt offerings, and cherished memories. Mihir Makure's report for DD India.
And on to some sporting action now. India are in the driver's seat after the end of day 2 in the ongoing third and final test match against New Zealand at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. Ravindra Jadeja and Ravichandran Ashwin wreaked havoc as the duo took 7 New Zealand wickets between them in the second innings. New Zealand ended day 2 at 171 for the loss of 9 wickets and with a lead of 143 runs. Earlier, India were bowled out for 263, taking a first innings lead of 28 runs. Shubman Gill top scored with 90, while Rishabh Pant slammed 60 runs. In reply, left-arm New Zealand spinner Ajaz Patel picked a 5-wicket haul to bring the visitors back in the game. On day 1, Ravindra Jadeja claimed his 14th 5-wicket haul in Test cricket as India made a remarkable comeback to bowl out New Zealand for 235 runs. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar was in attendance to wish Team MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, and Team US Embassy for the final of the Diplomatic Cup 2024 in New Delhi on Saturday. The event being held at the Arun Jaitley National Stadium in New Delhi. Top Indian athletes including Manu Bhaker, Anjum Modgil, Nishad Kumar and hockey players were felicitated in Delhi for their achievements. The event featured an expert panel on sports medicine, mental health and injury management. During the event, athletes gave their suggestions on educating young talents in injury prevention and doping awareness.
Delhi witnessed a grand celebration honoring India's top athletes for their remarkable contribution to sports. Renowned names like Manu Bhaker, Anjum Modgil, Arjun Babuta and Vijay Veer Sidhu graced the event. Also in attendance were para-athlete Nishad Kumar and hockey stars Manpreet Singh, Jarmanpreet Singh and Hardik Singh. The event included a panel discussion focusing on sports medicine, mental health and injury management.
Once the injury is, the first question is whether I would be able to play, whether the team will select me, whether the coach will select me. So we involve the coaches. Now the coaches also comes to us with all these problems, and we really try to guide them, and also we are trying to start some soulful meditation, all these programs for the players that can help really get over this very, very emotional period of the injuries.
Throughout the event, athletes recounted their journeys, highlighting the dedication and hard work required to succeed. Their personal stories brought inspiration to the audience, particularly young aspiring athletes.
उस समय जब मैं शूट कर रही थी, उस समय तो सिर्फ यही मेरे दिमाग में चल रहा था. बहुत सारी चीज़ों के अंदर सबसे बड़ी चीज़ जो चल रही थी वो यही थी कि अपने काम पे ध्यान दो, मतलब अपने कर्म पे पूरा ध्यान दो. आई वाज लाइक कि कोई बात नहीं, वन शॉट एट अ टाइम, अपने काम पर ध्यान दो. बाद में जो भी रिजल्ट होगा, चाहे गोल्ड आया, चाहे मैं एलिमिनेट हो गई, कुछ भी हो, वो मैं बाद में खुश हो लूँगी या दुखी हो लूँगी. अभी मैं फ़िलहाल अपने काम पर ध्यान दूँगी.
मेले में जैसे वो गन्स मिलती थी या फिर तीर कमान मिलते थे, तो मेरे को उसका बहुत ज़्यादा शौक था पहले से ही. एंड जब वेपन देखा पहली बार, तो मैं तो वो छोटा बच्चा पागल हो जाता जैसे, वैसे मैं ये तो मेरे को चाहिए. गन्स मेरे को रखनी थी, मेरे को एम करना अच्छा लग रहा था, सब कुछ अच्छा लग रहा था. तो इनिशिएटिव पापा ने लिया, लेकिन बाद में मेहनत सभी की ही रही.
Athletes engaged with experts, sharing valuable suggestions on educating young players about injury prevention and the risks of doping. The event emphasized the need for ongoing support in sports medicine and mental health, ensuring India's athletes continue to shine on the global stage.
That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can catch all the latest news and updates from India and the world on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.